We'll let Coach make an opening statement and take some questions, and then we'll get Montario Hardesty in here. Before we get started, just a reminder, if you don't know, there will be a special Carolina Calls tomorrow night, Wednesday, 7 to 8, down at Home Team Barbecue with Coach Shane Beamer.
All right.
So if you don't get enough Shane today, come down and have a little barbecue with us at 5 Points tomorrow night. With that, Coach Beamer.
Yeah, come on. The more the merrier. That's great. Appreciate everybody being on again today. Good to see everybody. First of all, just want to send my condolences to the family of Willie Scott, Carolina Hall of Famer, on his passing today. Thoughts and prayers go out to him and or go out to his family. I'm so sorry to hear of that news as well. Somebody I think a lot of and will continue to. Congratulations to Ryan Suckup and Kobe Smith on their Super Bowl victory the other night. That was awesome to see. And congratulations as well to Rashad Fenton and Chris Lamons on a great season with the Chiefs and making that game as well, which is a great accomplishment. I'm sure we'll be seeing those guys back in it many more times, I'm sure, and extra respect for Ryan Suckup, obviously a guy that was here when I was here as a coach, and to see him still performing at a high level after all these years is pretty remarkable, and couldn't be happier for him and his success. Couldn't happen to a better guy as well. Excited about our 5 new analysts. I know that was announced yesterday. Really pleased with the group we were able to put together there of people and coaches with recruiting ties in different areas that will really be assets for us here at Carolina going forward, and very thankful to Coach Tanner and our administration and board for allowing us to create a few more analyst positions to get some more support staff people in the building. Those guys will be fantastic for us, and really pleased about those guys being here. And then obviously we're here today to talk about Montario Hardesty. Super pumped to make that hire. Somebody that I've known of and followed his career since he got into coaching. Great player in college. Obviously that speaks for itself. Was a player in college when I was here before, and remember him through the recruiting process and then being a player in college. But what really attracted us to him was just the kind of person he is, and then his story. So many coaches that I talked to when we were doing our research on Montario, more than one coach or administrator used the word star to describe him. That they said, Shane, this guy's a future star. Another guy, Shane, he's a future star. You may not hire him this time, but you're going to be competing against him in the SEC very, very soon. People that I have a lot of respect for speak very, very highly of him, and that resonated with me. And I think his story is fantastic as well, certainly in relation to the running backs that we have on our team. Again, I said it before, I feel for them. They with Montario, they now have their 3rd running backs coach in less than a year. Now, again, the 2 guys that were here before obviously left here to go to the NFL, so you can't fault them from that standpoint. But it's tough on a running back or any position player when you have multiple position coaches in that short a period of time. And Montario and I were talking during the interview, and he had that happen to him in college. He had multiple position coaches in college, which I think will help a lot when it comes to getting in there with our guys. The fact that he has played the position at a high level, at the college level and the NFL level, is impressive to me, and will help us in a lot of ways. Anytime you can have a coach on your staff that has played the game in the NFL, which is where all of our guys want to get, I think that's a fantastic resource for our guys to have, and he's one of many that we now have on this coaching staff and in this building that have experience as NFL players. His career in the NFL wasn't quite what he wanted it to be, frankly, and that's a great story for everybody on our team, not just the running backs that they all think that we're going to go have 10-year careers in the NFL, and that's not realistic. He's a guy that had high hopes and had an unfortunate injury in a preseason game, and just like that, his career, was basically over. And then at that point, he didn't say, all right, I've played in the NFL and I expect to go get hired as a big-time football coach right now. He knew he wanted to get into coaching and chase that passion, chase that dream. Started out as a coach at Chowan, small college. And from there, he went to Norfolk State and worked. And then, the other roles and places that he's been, and then most recently at Charlotte. I have a lot of respect for his career path and knowing what he wanted to do and doing everything in his power to chase a dream, to be a college football coach, and trying to continually better himself each and every year. North Carolina native. That will certainly help in recruiting. We know how important that state is to us in recruiting, and he has fantastic ties up there. And then the roles that he's had, not just the place that he's been, but I think the fact that he's coached receivers helps. He obviously knows the running back position. He played it at a high level like I talked about, but then also being able to get out of that comfort zone from coaching running backs and be able to learn another position and coach receivers, I think will do nothing but help him going forward and help us as he jumps in that offensive staff room with Coach Satterfield and the rest of the offensive staff. So he got in here today. Today was his first day. Kevin Harris and Marshawn and all of our running backs were up here. Zaquandre Rashad, all those guys were up here this morning visiting with him, and I know they're excited that he's here from talking to those guys, and we are too. So fortunate we were able to hire him. I had a lot of people that were interested in him, and thankful that he decided to become a Gamecock. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions you guys have.
Use the raise hand function, and we'll get to you as quick as we can. David Cloninger with the first one.
Hey, Shane, thanks for doing this. With the analysts now hired and obviously Montario filling that vacant spot, are you done now with filling out your staff? Could there maybe be a few more support staff guys added over the coming weeks?
There could be. There's a couple things that Coach Tanner and I have discussed that are possibilities. It would have to be the right person, right time, but there's a couple specific guys that we've talked about for a specific role if it worked out on our end and their end. So we're probably done here for the short term, but again, we'll see what happens here as we go forward also. But very content and very happy with where we are right now with the people in this building and the connectedness that we have right now in this building. I really like.
Mike Yuba.
Hey, Shane, I'm sure you would agree that, with having a spring football practice starting, spring football in general is just starting a little bit later. There's some pros and cons with that. But as a new coach, teams trying to get acclimated to you guys. And then on top of that, you've had so much turnover with coaches. How much can that benefit you in this situation with having it as late as it is?
It's huge. I'm so thankful that we decided to do that. And there's positives to us going earlier and there's positives to going later. But the fact that we went later is perfect for us this year, just for those reasons that you said, Mike. I mean, new staff. We're trying to get systems implemented. Coach Satterfield and the offensive staff, they've been working since they got in here at the beginning of the month or the beginning of January. But then now today was Montario's first day, so they got to get him caught up and make sure they marry everything so that they're a fit from how we're calling things, and he's got to learn it. I'm doing so many things right now outside of like X's and O's that I need to get in there and dive into the schematic stuff with them more and more in depth, and I'll have time to do that as we go forward. And then just the fact that, 2020 was so unique for all programs, but particularly ours with Coach Muschamp making a change in strength coach after the season in 2019, having a new strength coach in 2020, COVID, everything that happened was certainly unique. And more importantly than anything, we got to get in that weight room and get stronger. And so the more time that those guys can have in there with Luke before we start spring practice, the better.
Eric Boynton.
Hi, Shane. I'm sure the hiring process is always kind of a little bit crazy for any coach in any situation, but how would you kind of describe your recent hiring process? Would you retain guys, they leave a few days later, then all of a sudden you think you might be set in other regards, then more guys kind of leave and you have spots open again? How would you kind of describe this roller coaster hiring process you've been on?
It's been a whirlwind, but, it's been enlightening. I was talking with somebody this morning. I mean, I think in the end, everything has happened exactly the way it should have happened and needed to happen. And nothing against anybody that's not here anymore, but I just think the vibe in this building right now is fantastic. And we replaced good coaches with some really good coaches, in my opinion, and really excited about the group of guys that we have in here, the way that they're working together. Things happen when you have good coaches. People are going to try and hire them. And like I've mentioned before in here, I mean, there's guys that are in this building that had opportunities to go places, and they chose to stay at South Carolina. Some of the on-the-field coaches and some of the support staff people in this building as well. So it's not just the guys that left. I'm really pumped about the guys that stayed and are here and want to be here. And it's always going to be an issue. I feel like we got an amazing building of personnel and people in here, and other programs know that. So there's going to be other guys that have opportunities to leave, men and women going forward, and you hope you make this just a fantastic environment that people don't want to leave. That's my goal each and every day, and confident that we're creating that. George Stoya, if you're going to get on this call, you better get your hand up and ask a question if you're going to jump on this thing.
Hale McGranahan.
Shane, how's Marshawn Lloyd doing with his rehab, and how much do you guys expect for him to be able to do once practice gets going next month?
He's doing well. Was in my office this morning, like I talked about with Kevin, and looks great. You can tell he's a guy that, during his rehab, he didn't take that time off. I mean, he got bigger and stronger. That was obvious to see. And when you hurt a knee, you're not able to do maybe as much cardio, obviously, because you're not really able to run and do some of that stuff. So it's been important for him to get back in shape. But really like his mentality, demeanor right now, and the way that he's working. And we're still, a month and a half, I guess, or a little over a month away from starting spring practice. So he's got quite a bit of time until we get into it. But we're certainly excited to, see what he looks like when we get cranked up next month.
John Del Bianco.
Shane, sticking on running backs, since this is the theme of this press conference, just how much of a comfort is it to know, the talent that you have in that room returning, leading with Kevin Harris, and with Kevin specifically, how much have you gotten to know him over the last couple of months, and what do you think of him as a person and as a player watching his film?
Yeah, really like him early on. Before I got hired, we were off when South Carolina played Ole Miss. And I was able to watch that game that night, or maybe we had a game that day. I can't remember. But anyway, I was able to watch the entire South Carolina Ole Miss game and remember thinking, man, at the time, got a great guy, a great running back right there. And then there's no doubt, what he did last year on a team that didn't have the success on the field that they wanted and weren't able to throw the ball as well as you need to in this league to win, for him and our offensive line and our entire offense to be able to, have such a productive year running the football stood out to me and is exciting going forward as we're able to put pieces around it. But been able to spend, quite a bit of time with him. I'm trying to get around our guys as much as we can, popping in the weight room and popping in downstairs when they're eating and bouncing around the locker room and the training room and just getting around our guys and doing as many activities as we can just in a relaxed setting. And he's certainly one of those guys. We had some phone conversations back in December and over Christmas break and then since then as well. So really impressed with him and that entire running back group.
Matt Connolly.
Shane, the people you talked to about Montario, why are they so confident that he's going to be a star as a coach? And what was it about him that made him such a great hire for you guys, you feel like?
He's just a great guy. Obviously I spent 3 years at Tennessee early in my career as a graduate assistant and have a lot of friends still up there, whether it be in the administration or in the equipment room. And you talk to anybody up there, just the way they speak of him is what kind of person he was. And they were able to see him as a player, and then when he came back to Tennessee as an analyst as well, they got to see him in both those worlds or in both those roles. And I think it's just the way that he treats people. The one thing that kept coming up in all my conversations is just what a fantastic personality he is. Just an electric, dynamic personality, always a smile on his face, always high energy, positive. That's what I want in this building. That's what I want this program to be about, positive, high energy guys. And he's that way. He's always got a little pep in his step and always got a smile on his face. And then having a chance to, when we met with him before, or when we met with him over Zoom for the interview, it was one of those things. He just stood out. Just kind of a personality that people gravitate to. I was really impressed with just his knowledge and his intelligence of just football in general. Not that I didn't think that, don't take this the wrong way, but just of people and of schemes and the different systems he was in when he was with the Cleveland Browns. I think they had maybe like 3 different coordinators in 3 years or 2 coordinators in 2 years, whatever it was. So he had to learn a lot of different systems, and that stood out to me as well. He's been exposed. He's not young, but in a young coaching career, he's been exposed to a lot of just different styles, systems, situations, roles, and was just a guy that had great experience from that standpoint. It was one of those, I was in my office talking to him on Zoom, and Sat was in his office on Zoom, and we were up here late one night last week, and as soon as it was over, he walked in my office and was like, what are we waiting for? Like, who else do we need to talk to? He was that impressive and got it done shortly thereafter.
George Stoya.
Hey, Shane. Hope you're doing well.
How's things in Denver?
They're great. That's actually why I'm on here. I don't really have necessarily a question for you, but for a very specific question for Ontario. But while I do have you on here, I will, I guess, just ask you, when you're going through these coaching hires, do you lean on people that come from your past? I know obviously your dad, but guys like Lincoln, do you look at how they handled those situations and kind of take advice from them as you go through these, hirings?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to reach out to a lot of people and try and be as very thorough as I can and talk to as many different people, head coaches they've worked for, people they've been around, teammates. I mean, anybody that's been around these guys in different roles. And I think in any job, anybody, if, not that Montario sent a resume to me directly, but you're not always going to call references on a resume. You're going to call, people they've been around and people you know and trust. And you certainly, each guy's different. I mean, I've been some places where if there was an opening, we sat down in the staff room and every single coach on that staff, spoke up and threw out potential names. I've been on some staffs where if there was an opening, you knew nothing about it unless the head coach asked you, and you didn't find out until you guys did who we hired. So I've been a part of different systems or different philosophies when it comes to that. But I'm certainly going to rely on people I trust and go back to people I know. I mean, Montario is a guy that coming out of, we talked about it during the interview. I mean, coming out of high school in North Carolina, Virginia Tech, and playing for my dad was one of the schools he considered. So knew his name going way back, and then obviously competed against him when I was a coach here before, and he was a player. So I think you look at every single resource, and I think too that one thing that's been beneficial as well is a lot of coaches. We're looking for a lot of the same positions, NFL and college. So it might be an NFL team or a college team is looking for a running backs coach, and they hire somebody else. I may reach out to that coach and, hey, who are some other guys that you came across that impressed you and things like that. And there were some guys in Montario's instance, not necessarily this year, but in previous years that had interviewed him that had great things to say about him as well.
Rick Henry.
Hey, Shane, I was just wondering, did you ever have any interactions with Willie Scott when you were here before as an assistant or anything like that?
I did not. I wish I had. Unfortunately, no. I mean, somebody that I knew of and have always had tons of respect for, but not a lot of one-on-one interactions with him when I was here before, unfortunately.
Phil Kornbluth.
Hey, Shane.
Phil.
The one spot that you still have left in your 2021 class, do you sense you're getting close to filling that?
No. I mean, there was actually a report last week I saw from one of you guys that somebody we've offered a scholarship to that we're full speed ahead on, which I've never had a conversation with, or offered a scholarship to. So that was disappointing to see some of that stuff. But no, somebody that we've got that in our back pocket that we'll certainly utilize that going forward and see the best situation that fits our program. Don't have anything imminent. No one right now that we're talking to. And at this point, it may potentially be something after spring practice as well.
Eric Boynton.
Yeah, Shane, you talked about having positive, high energy guys. Is there an extra level of energy maybe in this entire coaching room due to the fact that you have a bunch of guys? For the most part, this is probably the best job, the most high stature job they've had in their coaching career versus other coaches that were maybe just trying to hold on or had been at 5 different SEC schools, that type of deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think it worked out that way in some ways. It wasn't like I went into it and said, let me find 10 guys that this is going to be the best job they've ever had. And I don't know if all of those guys would say that. I hope they do. I think it just kind of worked out that I was looking for 10 great people, coaches, recruiters, and that's certainly the way it worked out. But you got a bunch of hungry guys in this building, players and coaches, and regardless of whether they've been at a high level or not, whether this is their second time around at an SEC school, or I think Greg Atkins, this will be his third SEC school that he's worked at. Torian Gray's been in the NFL. I mean, you got a lot of guys that have been a lot of different places, but I know we got 10 guys in here that really work well together, that are hungry and passionate and ready to compete and go see what we can be about.
Hale McGranahan.
Kind of a broad question, I guess, but what are you guys hoping to accomplish as a staff, and what do you guys want to see the team accomplish over these next 6 weeks before spring ball gets going?
Really, it's still attacking the weight room and doing everything we can to get in there. I mean, with Luke and continue to get stronger, and he's been phenomenal. And just talking to the guys, I mean, they're all coming in my office raving about how stronger they've gotten. I mean, Kristen in nutrition has done an amazing job with these guys, just as far as like body weights and where we want to get them, getting some guys up, getting some guys down. I mean, Jordan Strawn, for example, I think has put on close to 20 pounds since he got here, and this is a guy that it's good weight. Already led the nation in sacks last year, and then you're able to continue to develop his body with what we're doing from a nutrition standpoint with her and her staff, and then Luke in the weight room, and just continuing to develop these guys on and off the field is our mentality right now before we even get into a ton of scheme and things like that. So we're all weight room pretty much right now. As we get a little bit closer to spring practice, we'll start getting into some, football specific walkthroughs and things like that we're able to do before we start practice. But we got a lot to get done between now and then from just a physical and mental development standpoint.
Jen Del Bianco.
Shane, with Shaq Wilson joining the program as a defensive analyst, what do you remember about him as a player, his intangibles, his knowledge of the game as a linebacker, and what does he bring to that side of the ball on that staff?
All that. I mean, just a guy that always just had a smile on his face and just didn't have a bad day. Was a great worker, really productive player that was football smart, was good on all of our special teams, desire to get better. I like his experience, the fact that he's been in the weight room and he's been an analyst as well. So he's kind of been in both those worlds and has knowledge on both of them. And somebody like him and Byron that were dying to be here. And from the time I got the job, had those guys in mind and was just trying to get all the pieces to fit. But two guys that I've had in mind to try, if I ever got this opportunity, that I wanted to get back here because I know how much Carolina means to them. So to be able to get both those guys back was great. And Shaq's very knowledgeable just in some of our, staff meetings that we've had, just talking football and X's and O's. Some of, he's got a good mind, for the game of football for sure. And then the fact, too, that, where he's from in Florida as well, Jacksonville will always be a big area for us in recruiting and always should be as close as it is to us. And the fact that he knows a lot of people down there as well, is an added bonus.
And Josh Kendall.
Shane, you just mentioned Kristen. Along with Kristen, you've got Jessica Kim Fields, who you talked about in your opening press conference. A lot of women who are in high-profile roles in your organization. As a guy who's been around football his whole life, when did that stop feeling unusual or different for you that you had women, in important staff positions on football teams, although it's still clearly not the norm?
It's a good question. I don't know if I ever really thought about it, from that standpoint, Josh. I mean, Kim was here before when I was here and was fantastic when I was here before. She worked specifically with the assistant coaches then and was brilliant at her role and what she does and still is, has only gotten better since the time, that I left. And probably the one thing when I was here before was schools didn't have necessarily a position that Jessica's in right now, like of on-campus recruiting. At the time it was, the coaching staff, and then Robbie Lyles was here, and Patrick Shine and Scott Morgan, and that was basically our recruiting staff, period. And then those departments have grown over time where, somebody like, Jessica can get in here and be phenomenal at what she does as well. And then we didn't have, at least an in-house nutritionist like we do now with Kristen when I was here before. So I think a lot of it is just the staffs and the way that they've grown. But in my mind, and I've always been this way, male, female, black, white, it don't matter. I mean, the guy, if you can do a great job, then I want you on the staff if you believe in the things that I believe in, and we're all on the same page and all on the same team going in the same direction. The more of those people we can get in there get in the building, the better. But I'm very, very thankful to have those ladies here with me because they're fantastic. They're fantastic at what they do, and definitely need to keep them around. For sure.
I don't see any other hands up, so I guess we are good with Coach.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time. Have a good afternoon.
And we'll bring in Coach Hardesty here. All right, this is Montario Hardesty, our new running backs coach. And Coach, you want to make an opening statement, then we'll open up for questions.
Well, first I'd just like to say I'm happy to be here. Just got in this morning, so been able to get around the facility a little bit. Actually took a walk during lunch and walked outside and walked past the stadium and did those things. So I'm just trying to get ingratiated with the place. I drove through downtown, so the many times I've came here to play, I've recruited this area, but I've never actually been downtown. So I actually got to drive through downtown this morning a little bit. So got in this morning, met with some of my guys. I was actually just in a special team meeting that I got pulled out from now. So just trying to get myself comfortable with everything going on here. I'm excited to be here and ready to hit the ground running.
All right, first question goes to Mike Gillespie.
Hey, it would help if I unmuted myself.
Yeah, I got
hey,
you.
Montario, welcome to Columbia. Just a quick question for you. You might have two of the best running backs in the SEC coming back. Wondering how much of a factor that was in this decision and if you've seen those guys play.
Well, of course, I've seen him play. Lloyd didn't get to play last year, but, I was at another place seeing his recruitment, and, I recruited the D.C. area. So just seeing him as a player, he was one of my favorite guys coming out that year. So to have him here in the fold and him coming back off an injury, I was able to talk to him today. And, the craziest thing is I actually had that same injury my freshman year and was able to bounce back and be a all-SEC player. So just kind of talk to him. I can help him out with those things, any little help he need with that. And then just seeing Kevin Harris come on last year, I watched the opener game against Tennessee early in the season, and then just to watch more games later in the year. And, early on he wasn't the main guy, but how he persevered through that and just came through, running the peel last year. And, he's a big, stocky, sturdier guy, but he runs the ball hard, man. He has explosive plays. And, the other thing about those two guys is just meeting with those guys this morning, those two guys are very smart, man. They're going to be really smart running backs, and that's what you need in our system because it's going to be very running back essential, but it's going to be NFL style. So you have to know pass protection, run routes, all type of different type of zone plays that we got inside, outside, the different things we're going to do. But those guys are engineering majors, man. So those are really smart running backs as well. So I think they're good kids, but hearing nothing but good things about them. So I'm excited to get to work with those guys.
Let's go to George Stoya in Denver.
Hey, Montario. I actually have a couple really unique questions for you. I was talking to Coach Latrell Scott this morning over at Norfolk State, and he mentioned you because I was talking to him about Christian Parker, and he was talking about how you guys were two guys that obviously rose in the ranks. Christian just got the job here in Denver as the DB's coach. I just wanted to ask you first, what do you remember about working with Christian? Did you guys help each other? Obviously, you guys are two young guys that have risen pretty quickly. And secondly, you guys both kind of got your starts at HBCUs. And I think, talking to Coach Scott, sounds like that's really been a trend the last few years as you see a lot of these assistants from, historically Black colleges getting, big time jobs, whether it be in the SEC or even professional football like Parker. So those are my two questions. They're a little bit unique, but first about Parker and then secondly, just about, assistants in HBCUs.
Yeah, well, I call Christian, I call him CP. So, CP's my guy. He's like the same age as my little brother, 1 year younger. But, it was kind of like kind of that type of role where I was kind of mentoring him as kind of been a younger guy, but he was always been smart as a whistle, man. Smart. Was a really smart young coach there. He helped do a lot of special team things when I was special team coordinator, and I knew he would always be great. He was really good with relationships. So I'm proud of him going to Denver, and I think you're gonna see that his imprint on that secondary once he gets there. And, just Norfolk State and, HBCUs in general. I have family that went to HBCUs. I was recruited by HBCUs. So for me, again, with Coach Scott, who was the wide receiver coach at Tennessee when I played running back there, who had came from University of Richmond, who had also been the head coach at University of Richmond. So, coached at Virginia as well. So, he has some ranks in coaching, and he wanted to be at Norfolk State and to get that program better. So I wanted to go there and help. And it was early in my coaching career, and, I actually picked that opportunity instead of going to be a GA at like a bigger school or, Power 5 school, just getting into it. I wanted to coach my own position and learn how to recruit and do those things. So, I enjoyed my time at Norfolk State. And I think as a whole, we have some other young coaches on that staff that also have, grown and risen in different places. So I really think Coach Scott is a good coach, and I think CP, I think he's going to be defensive coordinator, head coaching his thing one day, man, because he's very organized, meticulous at what he does. He puts in the hours, and he relates well with the guys. So I'm excited for him, and coaching the HBCU was great.
Thanks, Coach.
Let's go to Eric Boynton.
Yeah, hello, Montario. Eric Boynton with the Spartanburg Herald Journal. In your short coaching career, you've had held a number of different positions. Now you're back for the first time since your first job at Norfolk State, coaching the running backs. If you have a choice to coach any position just because it's what you played, is getting back to just being in that running backs room solely, is that kind of most near and dear to your heart?
That's an interesting question. So honestly, here the coach of running backs here, they had Kevin Harris, my guy coming back, and being an SEC coaching running backs, that was always one of the dreams of mine in coaching. Early on, I wanted to show coaches and show myself that I can coach other positions, and also, for later on in life, I want to continue to, to be good, to be able to organize offenses and things like that. So I wanted to get on the outside and. First and foremost, just me being a running back, receivers used to not be able to block a lot. So, I want to kind of evolve those guys into the run game, but then also understand, the reads of the quarterback, the different things that the wide receiver has to do, whether I have a route that's locked or, understanding the coverages, and those things I think help you being a running back coach, because I always say that safeties don't lie. So as far as us, the pass protection and those things, those safeties, they're going to tell you where it's at. Those guys cannot lie, so that helps us in the pass protection and also help us, to know if it's quarters defense and I have a choice route out the backfield to know where those guys are going to be. So I think that only going to help me in coaching running backs. But, coaching running back is what I've played my entire life, literally. Like, I've been a running back since I was 7 years old. So that has always been near and dear to my heart. And, to coach really good running backs and to be in the SEC coaching them has been a dream of mine. And I always say running backs are the energy starters. So one thing that I want you to see from my guys when we start spring ball and start this thing going is that those guys are bringing passion and energy every day to the field. We're going to be the energy starters for the team.
Hill McGranahan.
Hey, Coach, I'm Hale McGranahan, the BigSpur.com. Welcome to Columbia. I wanted to ask you about coaching in general. Was it just something that you knew you always wanted to do when you were done playing, or was there a certain point in your career when you decided that was the route you wanted to take?
So I like to say I was always a coach, So growing up, I'm from New Bern, North Carolina. At my high school, New Bern High, we were always a really good program in football, but there were always times where we had guys that were good enough to go Division I and play football, but they didn't have the grades or they didn't have the work effort or those things like that. So a funny story is like my group, my four close friends and my little brother, we all went to college. We all went to Division I football college, and I consider myself coaching those guys along. I used to get us up in the morning, and we used to work out and do things like that. And the biggest thing why I knew I wanted to coach college football was, I'm at Tennessee. I'm majoring in sports management and doing the business administration double major. And I'm junior year, and I'm sitting over my running back coach, and I just got elected captain of the team. And I was kind of like, I didn't know I was gonna be the captain because I really didn't try to overtalk anybody to be the captain. But my coach just kind of said that guys kind of gravitate towards how you act, you do the right things, and I hire you as a coach. And at that point, it kind of got me thinking, well, I think when I'm done, I do want to come back and coach some, because I always had great coaches along the way, from starting at 7 years old, AAU track and AAU basketball, getting out and seeing the world, getting out and seeing more than just New Bern, North Carolina, going to California, Oregon to run track meets, going to Hershey, Pennsylvania for, AAU basketball things, going to D.C. So I always wanted to coach. I think my passion in coaching is helping guys and building relationships. So that's the biggest thing for me, is helping those guys get from point A to point B, which is if you see a coach, that's what it's defined to do.
Let's go to Mitch Brown.
Hey, Coach. Spent a lot of time in Norfolk, at Norfolk State, went to Old Dominion. But welcome to the area over at Watch Fox Sports as well. You mentioned getting your start in 2015 at Norfolk State, and I'm just curious, if you look back 6 years ago, just how much you've grown as a coach and a person. What's been the biggest thing as you've gone throughout this journey on your different stops that you've learned about yourself and as a coach?
Well, actually, my start was at Chowan University, a Division II school in North Carolina before I went to Norfolk State. So I was there, I was fresh out the league at that point. So literally had just retired in January and really didn't retire in January. Really didn't retire until about May because I had a knee injury, so I was rehabbing that. And about May was when I figured that, that knee wasn't going to come back right. It was the end of my contract, so I was trying to going to the next thing. And, from just Chowan, I was just kind of fresh, happy to be there, learning on the job as I was going, learning how to really structure things and kind of how to organize myself as a coach. So going from there to Norfolk State, getting around a lot of really good coaches, Cornell Brown, CP, Anthony Parker, who's now in Georgia Tech, Aaron Corp, who's quarterback coach at, been at Richmond, Mike Farragher, who won a championship at Richmond as the OC. So getting around those guys kind of helped me with my, organization and really learning how to recruit more and, doing those things. And that's where kind of relationship part came into it, where I really learned those 2 years to build a relationship with my guys that I'm recruiting, but also Coach Scott gave me an opportunity to be the special team coach. So I was able to get a relationship with each guy on the team. So, coaching running backs, but also having a relationship with the corners, with the linebackers, all those guys play on a special team unit. So just growing in that area, I think is the most. And, when I first started, I was 26. My birthday just passed February 1st. Now I'm 34 years old. So just more mature. I've been places and coaches. So I think playing and coaching have both helped me with perseverance and kind of going through some adverse situations, which I've been at in both things. So I think I'll be able to share that knowledge with my guys.
John Del Bianco.
Hey, Montario. I'm John Del Bianco with thebigspur.com, 24/7 Sports. Welcome to Columbia. As a former running back and now getting to, recruit these guys, recruit that position, what are some intangibles, some things you want to check off the box, on and off the field for guys you want to bring to Columbia?
Well, first and foremost, like we talked about today, I think the biggest thing for me is to get in here and recruit my guys back. Make sure that my guys know that I'm here to help them. Make sure I build that trust and build a relationship with my guys that I have here, because I think we have talented guys here on the roster. But just to add to that, in recruiting, I'm always looking for guys who can make you miss in the phone booth, I always say. So, really good short area, change of direction. I'm always looking for that burst. I want to see guys that run with balance and run behind their pads and, are able to use a weapon and do those things and, finish. At the end of the day, I'm watching a high school guy on tape. I'm watching his change of direction. I'm watching him move defenders. I watch his burst. But also now is you, the safety, and the backside corner coming, are you going to finish that play, whatever it takes to, to get that home run hit. Pass protection, I want a guy that's willing to do so, but I can teach those things once you get here around me. So and then other than that, I'm looking for your character off the field. So I'm going to ask and dig and, learn things about you, see about your leadership, see about your character, see about how competitive you are. And, those are things I want to bring here, guys that are competitive, guys that are smart, and then those things on the football field that I already mentioned.
Thank you.
Josh Kendall.
Hi, Coach. Josh Kendall with The Athletic. I saw that you were recruited by both South Carolina and Virginia Tech, and I wondered how far you actually got down the road with those schools, and if you remember meeting Shane's dad in that process.
Of course. So when I told my dad that I was actually coming here or that I was actually about to interview with Coach Beamer, he actually brought up when I went to Virginia Tech. This was 2004, November 2004. After my second round playoff game, I went there. They played against Virginia. So I was actually telling Coach that I probably would have been in one of his rooms in his house, because I actually, one of the visits on Saturday was to go to Coach Beamer's house. But, he was already coaching at that point as well. So just kind of a little joke there. But I remember going to Virginia Tech. I enjoyed my time there. And, it was kind of down to, they were in my top 3 or 4 schools at the end of the day. But I remember the visit vividly, and I remember it was cold out there when I went, but they had a tradition of running backs. They had some guys from North Carolina there, so I remember the visit, and I actually brought that up with Coach Beamer.
Go to Eric Boynton.
Montario, kind of a two-parter. You're still a young guy. do you ever allow yourself instances to where you look back and think, oh man, what might have been for you as an NFL player if you hadn't gotten hurt? And then part B, how blessed are you that you did get hurt and have your career come to an end at a young age? For a lot of guys, that means the end of their football life. You obviously are just building a career where it looks like you're going to be involved in football for as long as you want to be.
All right, well, that's a great twofold question. So I guess honestly, I always had a plan to coach. Even so, in my mind, I thought, I'm gonna get drafted, go to the league when I'm, they want to kick running backs out around 30 or so, they say. So I was gonna play till I was 30, 32, and then get into coaching. Unfortunately, my rookie year, I tore my ACL, and then, had to fight those next 3 years out to get my 4 in. But it was a blessing in disguise both times. I had to deal with that in the NFL, and I had to deal with that my first year when I was in college. So it kind of built a little bit of character in me as well. But I was going to get into coaching. It just sped up the timeline a little bit. So I'm happy to be here building relationships because, like I said, but the biggest thing for me, even when I was playing, a lot of guys that I played with that was actually in my running back room, I still talk to them to this day. At Tennessee, those guys, Arian Foster, Gerald Riggs, Torrin Poole, guys that I played with in Cleveland, Chris Obenaya, Brandon Jackson, a lot of guys that I played with down the line, Thomas Brown, who was here. I always wanted to help guys and kind of be a positive influence and help those guys grow. So I think I'm in my calling either way, and I was going to get here. I was going to get here by some point.
Do you allow yourself to dream, though, a little bit about what might have been if you stayed healthy for 10 years?
Man, of course I think about that all the time. I was starting as a rookie. So, yeah, I'm thinking, rookie year, I'm about to go get the fantasy league player of the year, all those things. So, all those things go through my mind all the time. But I think certain things happen for a reason. So I kind of once I got back from those injuries, that dream was kind of gone. It was kind of like, let's focus on the next thing. So, of course, I think back all the time and think, if I could have done that, if I could have done that. But I'm content with what happened, and I'm ready to move forward now.
Michael Espy.
Montario, you're a Tennessee icon, obviously, and still beloved in Knoxville. I think you know where I'm going with this one. Is it going to be weird this year to now be on the opposite sidelines from your alma mater?
I don't think it'd be weird at all. I enjoy my time there. There's still some people and relationships that I still have a good, relationship with there. I'm sure it'd be fun to kind of, had going back and forth with those guys in the orange. But honestly, I'm happy to be here. I'm grateful for this opportunity here, and those relationships that I have in Knoxville, those will still stay. That'll be the same thing. That was a place where I grew up as a man. Spent went from 18 to 22 there, but I'm good here, and I'm looking forward for the matchup.
Matt Connolly.
Can you share anything about this process of ending up at South Carolina and why this was the right fit for you and now is the right time?
Well, Coach Satterfield and Coach Beamer were actually both in Tennessee at one point coaching. I already had a good relationship. I already had a relationship with Coach Satterfield. I knew Coach Beamer kind of from, I went to go Virginia Tech to visit with his dad, and I played against him when he was at Mississippi State and he was here at South Carolina. So we didn't really cross paths as much, but Coach Greg Atkins was my offensive line my first couple of years at Tennessee. I was telling Coach Stepp that he was my favorite follow on Twitter. When I started coaching receivers, I always followed him a lot, see what he was doing. So I just think the familiarity with the guys here and just when I finally got on the call with Coach Beamer and Coach Satterfield, just how I felt like a really good spot. I like what they were building. I like the roster here. I think this place has all the potential to be a great football place. And always my favorite place to play at as a player. Coming here tonight, I played 2 night games here when I was at Tennessee. So coming here and playing was also always one of my favorite places to play. The facility here is amazing, top notch. So I really just think this is a top notch program, and I think we can build something special here.
And just to follow up, can you share a little bit about the times you played here and what stood out, their atmosphere, anything like that?
So my first time coming here in 2006, I had never actually been inside the football stadium here. And I got down, I was like, man, yeah, this is, so, of course the intro, but, when you guys come out, you got the sandstorm going, us, actually not you guys, when at that point you guys, but now when we come out, we play sandstorm, but as a visiting team coming out and you have to go past the the whole student section there, and they're going crazy, and the towers are going. To me, that's like intimidating for the opposite team, man. So I'm excited to see some fans back in there. As long as we get this thing under control with what's going on now and throughout this pandemic, but just the atmosphere here, man, there's so much. Just so much energy in the building. It's crazy to explain it. And then every time they get a good big play or get a first down, you gotta hear that I just heard out here going. So to me, it's a great place to play, man. Great atmosphere.
Somehow I think that's going to show up somewhere on Twitter. Hale McGranahan with the next one.
Sort of on that topic, are there any of the guys that you played against who were at South Carolina at that time who you really kind of remembered and stood out to you? Any of those names that you can recall?
Yeah. Well, first, Chris Culliver. He ran track with my little brother growing up. And we kind of have some banter back and forth. He's about to say he's the same age as my little brother. So made a nice little move on him throughout my time here. Norwood, we actually trained together down in Florida, and so I would always see him. Like we came out of draft the same years. Stephon Gilmore actually trained at the same place where I trained out in Florida as well. He came out a little bit after me, but he was a really good player there. Those are guys that really stand out to mind, guys that I competed against. And Shaq, of course, Shaq, who's here. I coach with Shaq. This is my second time being with Shaq coaching. Byron, Byron Gerardo, who was a beast up front. I didn't ever have to see him out there too much. So, he was there playing, and then also Gaithers, who was the defensive end that was about 6'6". He actually was in Cleveland with me. So I remember a lot of guys from South Carolina, and just right there, that shows you the pipeline that South Carolina has to get the guys to the next level and the type of talent that's been here. So I think this place I think we can do really big things here. So I just got excited just kind of rambling through those names.
Let's go to our resident Browns fan, Colin Taylor.
Yeah, I'm Montario, a resident Browns fan on the beat. So I remember in the early 2010s, you playing for the Browns on some not great teams. I'm curious, two questions for you. I didn't mean to bring up bad memories. 2 questions, but did you anticipate an actual rooster being in the building on your first day of work here? You see that?
I didn't anticipate that necessarily, but I was literally just in a special team meeting, and all of a sudden, it just it felt like 10 minutes straight. About every minute it was going. So I'm like, is there one outside? I should go outside and look, but I wasn't expecting that to happen. No, sir.
And I guess when you evaluate this roster and as you're coaching these guys, how do you judge progress? What things are you looking at from your group, whether it's statistics or certain things that you evaluate to say, okay, I'm getting in
a little bit right there, but I can answer that with for me as a coach, like each week and each day, I want to try to get, some people say it's cliche, but I always say process driven. There's a good friend of mine, Inky Johnson, first introduced me to that saying a long time ago. So each day is a process, and I think you need to set goals for the day as far as individually and those things, but as our group, which I'm not sure exactly what those goals are yet, but say one day we're running inside zone and we don't have our steps right, or as an individual, Kev didn't do something right in pass protection, and as a group there's a 6-man slide protection that we're not understanding. So can we get better with that from one day to the next? As far as being, I'm a stickler on body language and being positive and doing those things around the building. So were you moping around and not acting that way one day? Can we fix that? So for me, progress kind of just taking baby steps, but it's always a process towards your finished goal, your main goal. So whether that's a short-term goal, whether in the week we have to do these things, or about a year we got to do these things, or by the end of the semester I want all my running backs to do this. That's kind of how I measure progress. But I'm not really ready yet to say exactly what we need to progress on until I see those guys moving around.
Eric Boynton.
Yeah, any insight? You mentioned Adkins. Any insight or memories of Greg Adkins? We got to speak to him a few weeks ago, and he seems like one of those coaching lifers, one of those guys that just bleeds football. What are your former impressions of him, and now being reunited with him, Montario?
First, I think he's I think he's a really good coach, really good teacher, really good motivator. We always had really good offensive linemen. I think he's great with evaluating offensive linemen that fit his scheme and fit what he wants to do. And at the end of the day, he's an old school, old line coach, so he's gonna get after it. But I think he has a good relationship with his guys up front. So I have nothing but good things. I'm happy to be back with him. We've kind of been keeping in contact throughout this journey that I've been coaching. So I'm excited to be back here with him.
I don't see any other hands. Any last questions for Coach? We'll let him go. All right.
Thank you, Coach. Nice to meet you.
All right, thank y'all.
Appreciate everybody for jumping into
Appreciate
that.
it.
Thank you all.